Are you doing better or worse than the average person your age? Because here's the uncomfortable part. You probably have no idea. You see someone on social media leasing a car that costs more than your rent, and you assume that person has figured something out that you have not. You look at your own savings account and feel this low hum of shame, this sense that you are falling behind some invisible race that everyone else seems to be winning. But when you look at the actual numbers, the real data on what Americans have saved, invested, and accumulated, you might be shocked at where you actually fall. And I do not mean pleasantly shocked or unpleasantly shocked. I mean the kind of shocked where you sit back and realize you have been measuring yourself against a completely broken ruler. By the end of this video, I am going to walk through every net worth level, from negative all the way up to millionaire status. Not just the dollar amounts, what each level actually feels like to live, the psychology of it, the daily stress, the daily freedom, the decisions you can and cannot make, and the specific boring actions that move you from one level to the next. Because that is the part nobody wants to hear. The actions are boring, the results are not. My name is Kay, and I grew up between two cultures that think about money in completely different ways. In Japan, there is a concept called Mino Hodo wo Shiru, which roughly translates to knowing your own measure. It is not about settling for less. It is about understanding exactly where you stand before you try to move anywhere. You cannot build a financial plan from a fantasy. You build it from a number. Your number. So let us find it. First, let us make sure we agree on what net worth actually means, because a surprising number of people get this wrong. Net worth is not how much money is sitting in your checking account right now. It is not your salary. It is not how much your car cost. Net worth is everything you own minus everything you owe. Your savings, your investment accounts, your retirement accounts, your equity in your home if you own one. Add all of that up. Then subtract your mortgage balance, your car loan, your student loans, your credit card balances, your medical debt, whatever else you owe. Whatever number is left, that is your net worth. For context, the median household net worth in America is about $192,000. That is the middle. Half of American households have more, half have less. Now the average is over $1 million. But that number is basically meaningless for regular people because a handful of billionaires drag the entire average up. Imagine 10 people in a room. 9 of them have $1,000, 1 has $1 billion. The average net worth of that room is $100 million. Nobody in that room feels like a $100 millionaire except the one person who already was. That is the problem with averages when it comes to wealth. The median tells you where the actual middle is, the average tells you where the distortion is. Let us stick with medians. Now, for a lot of people, when they run the actual math, their net worth is not just low, it is negative. And that is where we start. Level 1. Negative net worth. This is survival mode. You owe more than you own. Every paycheck is already spent before it hits your account. Debt payments eat your income. Interest is accumulating while you sleep. You are running on a treadmill that someone keeps making steeper, and you did not agree to this workout. Here is the psychology of this level that nobody talks about. When you are in financial survival mode, your brain literally operates differently. Researchers call it scarcity mindset, and it is not a metaphor. Your cortisol levels are elevated constantly. You are not thinking about investing. You are not thinking about retirement. You are doing math in your head at 2 in the morning, trying to figure out if you can cover gas and groceries in the same week. You avoid opening your banking app because the number physically hurts to see. You decline invitations from friends because you cannot afford to split the check, and you would rather be seen as antisocial than broke. About 15% of Americans are at 0 or below. So if this is you, you are not some unique failure. You are in the same boat as roughly 50 million people. But you are in the danger zone, and the only goal at this level is brutally simple. Get to 0. That is it. Not get rich, not build a portfolio, not buy a house. Get to 0. Pay off the highest interest debt first, stop the bleeding, and get to the point where you owe nobody anything. 0 net worth sounds depressing until you have been negative. Then it sounds like fresh air. Level 2. $0 to $10,000 net worth. You are out of the hole, you are standing on solid ground, but you are standing right at the edge and you are still close enough to feel the gravity pulling you back down. At this level, you have a small cushion, maybe a few thousand in savings, but one real emergency wipes it out. One job loss, one medical bill, one transmission that gives up on life, and you are right back to zero or below. The daily psychology here is interesting. The drowning sensation is gone, but the anxiety is still there. It is like treading water in a calm pool versus treading water in the ocean. You are not going under, but you are not exactly relaxed either. You can handle a $500 surprise. That does not destroy you anymore. But a $3,000 expense still might. About 25% of Americans are in this zone. It feels like progress because it is progress. But it is not safety yet. You still flinch when your phone buzzes and it is from your bank. You still have that moment at the grocery store where you wonder if you should put something back. The fear is quieter now, but it has not left the room. Your entire focus at this level should be building to 10,000 in liquid savings. That is your escape velocity number. That is where the math starts working for you instead of against you. Automate a transfer, even $50 a week, even $25. The amount matters less than the consistency. Your emergency fund is like a muscle. You are not trying to bench press 300 pounds on day one. You are building a habit of showing up, and that habit is going to carry you through every single level after this. Level 3, $10,000 to $50,000 net worth. This is where something shifts inside your brain. And I mean that in a neurological sense, not a motivational poster sense. When you cross $10,000 in savings, your relationship with money fundamentally changes. You have a real emergency fund sitting there. 3 to 6 months of expenses depending on your lifestyle. The constant background anxiety starts fading. You stop doing mental math every time you buy groceries. You stop checking your account balance before every purchase. At $25,000, you start feeling stable in a way that's hard to describe if you have never been there. At $50,000, you have real momentum. Here is the psychology shift that matters. You go from survival mode to what I call opportunity mode. When you are broke, every decision is about avoiding disaster. Do not spend that. Do not take that risk. Do not try that thing because you cannot afford to fail. But when you have a cushion, you start making decisions from security instead of fear. And that changes everything. You negotiate harder at work because losing your job is not a death sentence anymore. You take calculated risks, maybe starting a side project, maybe investing in a certification, because you have a safety net underneath you. An unexpected $2,000 car repair is annoying. It is not catastrophic. You do not panic when your check engine light comes on. About 20% of Americans are in this zone. You are now doing better than roughly half the country. That might not feel impressive when you scroll past people flashing watches on your timeline, but statistically, it is significant. Your action at this level is simple. Get your savings rate to at least 12 to 15% of your income. If you are not investing yet, open a brokerage account. Put money into a broad index fund, an S&P 500 fund, or a total market fund. Do not try to pick individual stocks. Do not try to time the market based on something you saw in a comment section. Just automate it and let compounding do the work. Compounding is patient. You should be too. Level 4, $50,000 to $100,000 net worth. This is the threshold of comfortable, and that word actually means something here. At this level, you can handle almost any single emergency without going into debt. Medical bill, home repair, emergency flight, you can absorb it. And at $100,000, you start watching compound interest actually work in real time. Your money made $7,000 or $10,000 last year just by existing. You did not work overtime for it. You did not pick up a side hustle. Your money sat in an index fund and grew while you were sleeping. That is a strange feeling the first time you see it. Daily life at this level is calm in ways that people in the lower levels cannot fully appreciate yet. You pay bills without checking your balance first. You go to restaurants without mentally calculating what you can afford to order. You book a trip without doing arithmetic about whether your account can survive it. You start thinking in years instead of weeks. Retirement stops being some abstract thing that old people worry about. It becomes a real goal with real numbers and real timelines. Here's where I want to introduce Smart Sam and Broke Brian, because this level is where their paths split in a way that becomes permanent if nobody intervenes. Both earn $75,000 a year. Same job title, same city, same take-home pay. But Broke Brian saves about 6% of his income. He leases a new car every 3 years. His housing and transportation eat up 60% of his take-home. He carries a credit card balance and pays minimums. He does not invest outside of whatever his employer automatically puts into his 401k. After 30 years at 7% average returns, Brian ends up with about $457,000. Not bad, but not freedom either. Smart Sam earns the same $75,000, but he saves 18%. He drives a reliable used car he bought with cash. His housing and transportation stay under 50% of take-home. He pays his credit card in full every single month. He maxes out his employer match and invests the rest in broad index funds. After the same 30 years at the same 7% returns, Sam ends up with about $1.37 million. Same income, same city, same career length. Sam has tripled what Brian has. The difference is not talent or luck or some secret investment hack. It is 5 or 6 boring decisions made consistently over decades. Save 18% instead of 6%. Pay credit cards in full instead of carrying balances. Keep housing plus transportation below 50%. Maintain 3 to 6 months of liquid runway at all times. Invest in broad index funds instead of chasing whatever is trending. These are not exciting decisions. Nobody is going to make a highlight reel out of you paying your credit card bill. But these are the exact habits that separate the people who cross 100,000 from the people who stay stuck below it. And speaking of building those habits, if you are trying to figure out exactly where to start based on your specific situation, I built something for that. The link is the first one in the description. It starts with a quick quiz that tailors everything to your circumstances. No generic advice. Just the next step for where you actually are right now. Level 5. $100,000 to $250,000 net worth. You have officially crossed into the top third of American households. You have more accumulated wealth than most people will reach in their entire lives. I need you to sit with that for a second instead of immediately comparing yourself to the next tier. At this level, compound interest becomes your silent partner. Your investments might add $10,000 to $25,000 per year without you lifting a finger. Your money is making money, and that new money is making money. The snowball is rolling, and it is visibly getting bigger every quarter when you check your statements. Daily life has genuine margin. You do not think about routine purchases. You can absorb big expenses without adjusting your lifestyle. A $5,000 surprise, a medical bill, a home repair, a last-minute flight. It is annoying, but not devastating. But here's the real unlock at this level, and it is psychological more than financial. You start having options you never had before. You could take a sabbatical. You could switch careers entirely. You could move to a new city or even a new country. The cushion gives you freedom to make choices that go way beyond just not starving. This is what I call walking away money. Not enough to retire on, but enough that bad bosses have less power over you. Toxic workplaces are easier to leave when your bank account does not hold you hostage. You can say no to things that drain you and yes to things that actually matter. And that changes how you show up everywhere, at work, in relationships, and how you carry yourself. About 12% of Americans are in this zone. You are doing well by any reasonable measure. Now here is the part nobody warns you about. This is also where lifestyle inflation becomes your biggest enemy. You have money now, companies know it. They are marketing directly to you. Your friends might be upgrading their houses, their cars, their vacations. The temptation to inflate your spending to match your growing income is enormous. Your closet starts getting nicer. Your subscriptions multiply, your taste in restaurants gets more expensive. And if you give in to all of it, you get stuck at this level permanently. The people who push through are the ones who keep their lifestyle relatively flat, while their income and investments grow. That gap between what you earn and what you spend is your wealth building engine. Protect it like it is the most valuable thing you own. Because it is. If you are finding this helpful, hit subscribe. I break down money psychology like this every week, and the algorithm is a lot nicer to me when you do. Level 6. $250,000 to $500,000 net worth. Now we are entering wealthy territory. Not flashy wealthy. Not the kind you see on social media. Quiet wealthy. The kind where your neighbor has no idea because you drive a Toyota and wear the same jacket you bought 4 years ago. At $250,000, your investments might generate $20,000 to $25,000 per year in growth. That is a part-time salary doing nothing. At $500,000, it's $40,000 to $50,000. That is a full-time salary in a lot of American cities. Think about that for a second. Your money is earning what some people make working 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, and you are not doing anything for it. Daily life at this level is completely free from money stress in a way that changes the texture of your entire day. There is nothing in a normal store you cannot afford. Vacations are about preference, not budget. You upgrade things because you want to, not because the old one broke. You think in decades, not months. Work becomes optional in a different way at this level. You might keep working because you enjoy it, because it gives you purpose, because you like what you do. But you are not working because you have to. And when that shift happens inside your head, it changes everything about how you approach your career. You take bigger swings because failure does not mean financial ruin. You negotiate from strength because walking away is a real option, not a bluff. You start thinking about longer horizons, planning for inheritances, considering whether you want to work until 65 or 55 or 45, asking yourself what you actually want from your remaining decades instead of just what you can afford. About 8% of Americans are in this zone. You are in the top 10%. You have won a game that the majority of people do not even get to play. Let me zoom out here and address some objections, because right now someone watching this is thinking, okay, inflation is eating my returns. The market could crash tomorrow. I cannot save that much on my salary. Fair points. Let me counter each one. Inflation averages about 3 to 3.5% historically. The stock market has returned roughly 7 to 8% after inflation over the last century. Yes, there are crashes. Yes, there are ugly years where your portfolio drops 30% and you want to sell everything and hide cash under the mattress. But if you are dollar cost averaging into broad index funds over 10, 20, 30 years, the math is overwhelmingly in your favor. You do not need to time the market. You need time in the market. Those are two very different sentences. As for not being able to save enough, there are only two levers: earn more or spend less. And in my experience, most people have more room on the spending side than they think. Cancel subscriptions you forgot you had. Your phone is currently charging you for 3 streaming services you have not opened in 2 months. Negotiate your phone plan. Cook at home 3 more nights a week. That alone could save you $300 to $400 a month. Get the employer match on your 401k. That is free money sitting on the table and you are just walking past it. Automate everything so you never have to rely on willpower. Willpower runs out by Wednesday. Systems do not. Level 7. $500,000 to $1 million net worth. You are a $500,000 or better. This sounds fancy because it is. At this level, your investments can realistically replace a middle-class income. $500,000 at a 4% withdrawal rate gives you $20,000 per year. $1 million at 4% is $40,000 per year, potentially forever, without ever touching the principal. Let me define that for anyone who has not heard of it. The 4% rule means you withdraw 4% of your portfolio each year. Historical data shows this strategy has a very high probability of lasting 30 or more years. It is not perfect, and there are legitimate debates about whether it should be 3.5% or 4.5%, but it is a solid baseline for planning. Daily life at this level is whatever you want it to be. You can design your days around fulfillment instead of obligation. You can retire early if you want. You can work on passion projects. You can help family members financially without hurting yourself. Most material desires are easily met at this point. The things you still cannot comfortably afford are yachts and private jets. Everything else is accessible. About 5% of Americans are in this zone. You are in the top tier. The stress of money is a distant memory. The game has fundamentally changed from accumulation to allocation. The question is no longer, how do I get more? It is, what do I do with what I have? Level 8. $1 million and above. You are a millionaire. Top 3% of American households. At $1 million, your portfolio generates roughly $40,000 to $70,000 per year at historical market returns depending on your allocation. At $2 million, it is $80,000 to $140,000. At $5 million, you are generating more passive income than most people earn working full-time for their entire careers. Daily life at this level is difficult to describe to people who have not experienced it. Money is no longer a factor in almost any decision you make. It is just not something you think about. You do not check prices. You do not comparison shop. You do not stress about bills because there is no version of your bills that matters at this level. Your problems become different problems. estate planning, tax optimization, how to structure your giving, how to raise children who understand the value of work when they have never experienced financial pressure. Existential questions about meaning and purpose that no amount of money can answer. Here's the thing about this level, though. It does not feel 10 times better than 100,000, even though it is 10 times more money. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation. Humans get used to anything. The big house becomes normal after 6 months. The luxury car is just your car after the first oil change. The expensive vacation is just a vacation once you have taken a few. The novelty wears off faster than you expect. The biggest difference is not happiness. Research from Princeton and more recent studies suggest that emotional well-being levels off somewhere around $75,000 to $100,000 of annual income, with some newer research pushing that number higher. But the core finding holds. After a certain point, more money does not proportionally increase daily happiness. What it does increase is freedom. Complete, absolute freedom to do whatever you want, whenever you want, with whoever you want. That is what 1 million plus actually buys. Not happiness, freedom. Now let me tell you where I see people go wrong with all of this. They compare themselves to the wrong reference point. If you have $50,000 saved and you are comparing yourself to millionaires, you will feel poor. But you are doing better than 60% of Americans. You are winning a race you did not even know you were in. If you have $200,000 and you are comparing yourself to the billionaires you see on social media, you will feel behind. But you are in the top 15% of the wealthiest nation on earth. You are crushing it by any historical standard. Comparison to people above you will always make you feel inadequate. There is always someone richer, always a higher level, always a bigger house and a newer car, a more exotic vacation. That is a game with no finish line, and you are guaranteed to lose it, because the finish line moves every time you get close. The person with 1 million wants 5. The person with 5 wants 20. The person with 20 is looking at someone with 100 and thinking maybe I should have started earlier. Nobody at the top of the ladder looks down and feels content. They look sideways at the taller ladder. Compare yourself to where you were a year ago. Compare yourself to the median. Compare yourself to what you actually need to live the life you want to live. By those measures, you are probably doing way better than you feel. And let me say this as someone who has studied both the American approach and the Japanese approach to wealth. Net worth is not the only measure of a good life. Someone with $50,000 in deep relationships and meaningful work and solid health is living a richer life than someone with $5 million who is lonely and purposeless and falling apart physically. Money solves money problems. It does not solve loneliness. It does not solve the question of what your life is actually for. It does not fix the feeling that you are just going through the motions. Build wealth because it creates options, because it reduces stress, because it gives you security and freedom and the ability to say no to things that do not serve you, but do not make it the only scoreboard. The goal is not to maximize a number in a spreadsheet. The goal is to reach enough. Enough so money is not a source of anxiety. Enough so you have freedom and choices. Enough so you can focus on what actually matters to you and the people you care about. For most people, that number is somewhere between $500,000 and $2 million, depending on where you live and how you want to live. Beyond that, you are just adding digits for the sake of adding digits. And that is a hobby, not a purpose. So here's what I want you to do right now. Figure out your net worth. Add up everything you own. Subtract everything you owe. Write that number down somewhere you will see it tomorrow. Which level are you at? More importantly, what would it take to reach the next one? What is the gap between where you are and where you want to be? What is the timeline if you start saving 15% starting this month? What is the plan if you automate everything and stop relying on willpower to get you there? Those are the questions worth asking.